The Rock, the great one, the most electrifying man in all of entertainment, has not talked down, has not hated, has not criticized, has not even cut a promo on former WWE creative writer Vince Russo. No, instead, what The Rock has done the right thing. The Rock has done the fair thing. The Rock has done what The Rock always does, and that's speak his mind and says what he wants to say and does what The Rock wants to do. The Rock defended. The Rock stood up. The Rock talked good, talked confidently about Vince Russo, defended Stone Cold Steve Austin as well. Now, we all know that Vince Russo gets a lot of hate. We all know that Vince Russo gets a lot of criticizing. We know Vince Russo, he had a lot of bad ideas. He had a lot of bad concepts. This on a poll, that on a poll. The bottom line is The Rock is defending the kind of mind, the work ethic, the effort, the authenticity, the natural ability that Vince Russo had to put a story together and get from point A to point B all the way to point Z. You can say what you want to say about Vince Russo. Sure, he's not perfect. Sure, he's made some mistakes. He's made some blunders. He's not perfect, but he's never claimed to be perfect. But now that The Rock is singing the praises of Vince Russo, and maybe The Rock doesn't even agree with every single choice or concept that Vince Russo's come up with, and the Attitude Era, you couldn't get no better than Vince Russo. Now, it is true that in this day and era, a lot of Vince Russo's ideas and concepts and storylines and angles and promos and all that stuff, it wouldn't fly. You got sponsorships, you got this and you got that and the other, and we are in a different time and a different era. But I'm glad that someone of The Rock's name, The Rock's notoriety, someone of The Rock's stature has finally said, I've heard enough about the Vince Russo criticism, the Vince Russo hate, and finally someone of the stature of The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, finally stands up for Vince Russo, and he deserves, let's be honest, you got to give credit where credit is deserved to Vince Russo. And here on Sean's View Entertainment, I work around the clock. I don't stop. I keep it prolific, consistent, and dedicated. The brash and the brazen. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad The Rock spoke about this on Twitter. I'm glad The Rock brought this up. And again, for every one of Vince Russo's bad ideas, I would like to think and I would like to assume that Vince Russo had a lot more better, a lot more confident, a lot more worthy ideas and storylines than anything else. He did more good than bad, in my opinion. Everyone says, he's responsible for sinking the tank. WCW. How can one man be responsible for putting a business out of business? Just one man. Are you kidding me? Vince McMahon, had Vince Russo as his right-hand man. Vince Russo also worked directly with the talents. Vince Russo, one of the most reliable creative heads of all time. There'll probably never be another creative mind like Vince Russo. So, ladies and gentlemen, your comments and your opinions on The Rock, the great one, finally stepping up and talking good and trying, well, again, it ain't going to silence the critics and the naysayers about what they think about Vince Russo. Everyone's going to have their good and their bad, but when it comes down to it, The Rock worked with Vince Russo. He knows Vince Russo, and at the end of the day, maybe The Rock and Vince Russo, who knows, maybe they can have a promo, maybe they can have a podcast. I don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, your comments and your opinions, and were you a fan of Vince Russo's ideas? Were you for it? Were you against it? Would you think it would be better if he was back on the creative team today? Although we all know the creative team has changed a heck of a lot since 1998, 1999, 1997, so on and so forth. But would Vince Russo's ideas work in the PG era? Well, it would have to be a lot watered down and probably wouldn't come off as impressive or as chaotic or as entertaining or as compelling. But ladies and gentlemen, your comments and your opinions, more to come for around the clock. I don't stop. Sean's View Entertainment is here. Later.